Hey everybody, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. I've got another cool camera here from Reolink. So it looks like Reolink is at it again with another new camera, but I actually have these two that I'm reviewing right now. It's the 822A and the 1220A. These are some pretty nice cameras, but I'll have those reviews out here shortly. But what we're talking about today is this new camera, and it's so new it doesn't even have its own box just yet. They're borrowing this one from the Argus PT, which I've already reviewed. But that's something when you got a camera that's so new, they have to borrow the box from somebody else. So looking at this, this is supposed to be the new E1 Outdoor. It's an outdoor version of the E1, and there's an E1 Pro. I've reviewed both of those, and they look pretty much just like this. Although the sticker on the bottom here says E1 Zoom, so maybe the sticker is not quite right, but we'll see when we get it powered up what name comes up in the system. So anyway, looking at the camera itself real quick here again, this looks just like the E1 and the E1 Pro, but what's interesting is this one has a dedicated Ethernet connection right there, and then there's a power cable there so you can supply power to it with an adapter. Now this one, at least this particular one, does not come with an adapter. At least I don't think it does. I'll have to pull that out and look a little more in the box. But anyway, so it's a Wi-Fi camera. It's a dual band, so you got your 2.4 gigahertz and your 5 gigahertz. But what I really like is you have the option to go with an Ethernet connection if you like. So the other goodies in the box here, it has a top mount. Got stuff going all over the place here. So that the camera can be mounted upside down. You can see they already have the logo there already printed, so the camera is normally in this orientation right here. And it hangs from this bracket right there. And then you would attach this to the wall. And there's a strap. I guess if you want to mount this thing to a pole or a tree, for example. Some anchors. Oh, it does come with an adapter right there. Okay, so it does have an adapter. Most likely 12 volts. Yeah, 12 volts, 1 amp. I just didn't look deep enough in there. And we've got some other goodies here. It has a nice little Ethernet cable. And then this is the extension for the power. So you can plug your adapter into the wall, and if this little cable here isn't long enough, well, you can extend it. And I'll see how long this is in a moment also. And that's it. All there is in that box. So as with all Reolink cameras that I've ever looked at, you get the Reolink app on your smartphone. They have an app for Android or an Apple phone. And there's a QR code that you scan in here on the back of this one. It's usually somewhere on the camera. And once you scan that in, you input all the data, all the information from that camera into the app, and the app then knows which camera it's adding. And the connection, for example, you can do it here with an Ethernet for the first time to set up also. If it's just a Wi-Fi camera, then you have to connect to your Wi-Fi. And a word of wisdom there: when you do hook up a Wi-Fi camera, you want to make sure that your phone is connected to the same Wi-Fi network that you're going to be connecting your camera to. And for a lot of people, that's not really an issue because you only have one Wi-Fi network in your home. But if you have several, or you live in an area where there are Wi-Fi networks all over the place, you just want to make sure that you connect to the same one that you're connecting the camera to, or you'll have all kinds of problems getting the camera to communicate. And this one is actually so new, I don't have a spec sheet for it yet either. At least I don't think I do. They may have sent me one. I'll have to check. But anyway, you can see there's a very large vented section there, and then there's a large speaker on the back. Actually, this is most likely to drain water out, so when this thing's hanging upside down, any water that accumulates around the camera section there, it has a way to get out, because you don't want moisture to stay in there and freeze, of course. So there's the usual protective cover on the front. And looking at it a little more closely, Looks like there is that's probably the microphone. We've got a couple of high intensity LED spotlights there, and then usually there's a place to put an SD card if you very carefully inch that forward, and yep, there it is. So under that little flap there, let's see how this comes out. Yeah, so you push that as far as it'll go, and there's a little rubber cover, and we pop that off there. And there's usually a reset button. Yep, a little hard to see, but there's a reset button on the right. If I can get this thing to hold still. So right over here to the right, it's hard to tell, it's kind of dark in there, but there's a reset button, or a hole actually. You put the little tool in there, like a paper clip, to reset. And then your slot for an SD card. The contrast is not real good, so it's hard to see what's going on down in there. But anyway, that's where your reset button and your slot for the SD card are. Alright, so now I'm ready to actually power it up. And a lot of these cameras have little voice prompts that sort of tell you what to do. And in the early days of these types of cameras, it was always, or it was often, I should say, a struggle to get the camera to communicate, and you didn't know what to do. So I will get this plugged in to my router, and then I'll plug that in and then power it up and see what happens as I knock things over. Okay, give it a moment. Okay, there's a little blue light at the top. I don't know how well that's showing up. Let me get down here where we can see it. Yeah, you can see a little blue light at the top. And usually these cameras go through a little cycle where they go up and down, and you see the lens, if it has zoom. And it looks like it does have zoom because there's the lens going to full stroke. Okay, now we're going to go a sweep to the left. And it hits a dead stop, and it should sweep back to the right. And my guess is the next thing I need to do, I don't hear any voice prompts on it, but I'll go ahead and get this thing connected to the app on the phone. Wow, this thing was super easy to set up. I've got the spotlight on there, and you can't really tell in the video, but that is absolutely blinding. I'll have to turn that off here in a minute, or actually face it away from my face. Anyway, so yeah, you scan in the QR code on the bottom to add it to your phone app. The camera initializes, you enter a password, you verify a password, you give the camera a name, and that's it. So it is up and running. I had it connected for a little bit with the Ethernet cable. Now it's strictly Wi-Fi. And it is a 5 megapixel camera. And I'll put the specs together and get those up here in a minute. But the other thing I'm trying to see if I can do is I'm actually reviewing a nice Reolink NVR. This is the RLN 16-410, and I'll see if I can get this new E1 Outdoor to connect. Alright, so I posed the question to Reolink about whether or not this camera will connect to the NVR, because the E1 Pro and the E1 both connect. So I would think that this one would have that capability at some point. But anyway, their response was right now it does not have that capability. So I'm just trying to find out if it will in the future. So if I get an answer here, I'll post it. Well, it turns out that they finally did give it that functionality. It does connect. Here is the E1 Outdoor. So it does work with the NVR. And here are the specifications. There are 2 separate slides, so you can pause either one if you need a moment to look at it in more detail, and then move along with the rest of the video. And I went over the external features when I first got it out of the box, but we'll take another quick look at the external features in these 3 slides. These next clips show vehicle detection up close and vehicle detection at a distance. Here is the person detection, and keep in mind, it works pretty good on one person, but you get multiple people and you can confuse the camera because it's trying to pick up on multiple objects moving. So for just one person, it works just fine. Also, the noise you hear from the panning, the motors, the resonating through the microphone. Reolink is working on a fix through the firmware to help reduce that. I'm not sure that they can get rid of all of it, but they should make a significant improvement. So I walked up on the camera and it is in night vision mode, but the spotlight comes on since I have it in auto mode. So anytime there's a motion event, the spotlight will come on, and you can see how it lights the area up, and you really get full color mode when the spotlight comes on. Now, I've got enough other light around here that you don't get the typical black and white night vision mode. But when it is in night vision mode and the spotlight comes on, you get the full color mode that you are seeing right now. The sound you hear in the background, people are testing out their fireworks. 4th of July is coming up, so I guess they gotta test them out. But anyway, this is a really nice feature. I like the spotlight. Again, I can override it and manually turn it off, and you can see the difference there. And of course, it comes back on when I move. Anyway, you get the idea. And here is what the camera looks like through the PC app. So I can come over here to the right, click on the PTZ button, and I can move the camera around manually when I click on the buttons, and I can, of course, I can overshoot it a little bit there, and I can go all the directions through the pan and tilt buttons, and I can also use the zoom feature. So it's zoomed all the way out now, and I can zoom all the way in, and then give it a moment to catch up on the focus. And then I can zoom back out. And then other functionality down here on the bottom right is the alarm. I can manually force the alarm on. I can manually force the spotlight on. Of course, if you have your microphone hooked up, you can talk through the camera, and then you can capture video and take pictures all through the controls here on the right. And this is through the Reolink PC app. I can also change the resolution. There's fluent. Of course, that uses a lot less bandwidth, but your image quality suffers. And for playback, you just drag whichever camera you want over to the screen, and then I can pick the time and then the image quality. So I can click at a different time and it will bring up that time for any day I want. Alright, so all in all, this is a great little camera. It's 5 megapixels, you've got the pan, tilt, zoom, you've got the spotlight here, you've got the tracking ability, it'll follow a person or an object around. And the big thing to really keep in mind here is that this is a pre-production release. So they are still working on some of the last minute fine-tuning of the firmware. So that's why, you know, the tracking is a little hard to get to turn it on and off the way it's set up now. And originally they were telling me that this wouldn't work with the NVR, and some of the changes they've made since, it does work with the NVR, so the video feed can go directly to the NVR. But as with any product, when it finally gets released, usually there's still a tweak or two to the firmware and updates to the app that further enable different features and functionality. So things like the noise coming from the motors in there as this thing pans and tilts, those things usually get taken care of. I can say that all of my other pan, tilt, zoom, Reolink cameras, they're very quiet. You really can't even hear the motors run. So this should be released fairly soon. Pricing, MSRP will start out at $99.99, so $100. I think that's a pretty good value for what you get in this camera. I really like it, so I would give this the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award, well, at least when it finally comes out. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. And by the way, this is a bracket that I made. This isn't one that comes with the camera. I forgot to mention that, so one more time, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.